is Perez. I live in the Northpark, Left Field neighborhood.
I'm Amy Perez, and I live in the Northpark, Left Field neighborhood as well.
I was born in Austin, Texas, but my dad was in the oil industry, and so we moved around quite a bit. But my hometown is in deep South Texas, near Corpus Christi, a town called Alice, Texas, which is middle of nowhere. So glad to be here in Dallas. Not Alice, but Dallas.
I was born in Pasco, Washington, and my parents were Cuban immigrants who came over after the Bay of Pigs, and Washington State was just much, much too cold for Caribbean people, so they moved to Alabama. From Alabama, I was reared in Birmingham, and then at the age of 16, we moved to Tuscaloosa, and then after I got my degree, I wanted to come to Texas. So here I am.
Well, we met in Alice, Texas, my hometown.
Yeah.
And I was getting my master's at the time, MBA at Texas A&I. It's now A&M Kingsville. It was the last year. When I was there, they changed it to A&M Kingsville. And I got a part-time job at the local newspaper where she was working at.
As I was a reporter.
Yeah.
At the Daily.
So we met there, yeah.
Stuck training him.
Yeah, I was a newbie and I had no clue what I was doing, and she trained me. There's a whole story there, but probably not for the video here. It was January 1995. I had gotten a job. We were living in Houston at the time, or Houston area, down towards Clear Lake, and I got a layoff. I was in the oil and gas training industry, and went through a downturn. He says, well, it's just as easy to move across the street as it is across the state. And her sister lived in the Dallas area. So we said, well, you know what? Let's find let me look for something in the Dallas area. And lo and behold, I found something in downtown Dallas. And in January '95, we made the move up here to Dallas and moved straight to this neighborhood. It was a great location. One of the things we were looking at was wanting to be close to family and close to work. And so it was perfect. And so we made the move and then have been in the neighborhood ever since.
We lived on Kelton Drive, east of Roper, so in between Roper and Inwood, and we were one block off of Lover's Lane. And when we moved in, I think that's for us the roughest time for the neighborhood. I mean, we had prostitution, we had drug deals, we had Smokey, who was 2 doors down from us. It was a smokehouse, and he ran prostitutes out of that duplex, and 2 doors down the other way was another drug dealer where grandma and daughter, everyone would be sprawled out on the front lawn by the police. It was a
rough neighborhood.
It was a rough neighborhood.
Right.
But when our duplex came on the market, I called him at work and I said, we got to buy it, because I love the neighborhood. Because not everyone, it was just pockets. And I knew that eventually it would, the good people that live here, we all would come together and clean up the neighborhood, which we've done. When we bought our duplex, it was behind the Lover's Lane Antique Market. Okay, and at that time it was Shelton School.
Yeah, it was the Lover's Lane Antique Market, and then Shelton School.
And then Shelton School.
Because they had a little baseball diamond there.
Right, and then the apartment or the condominium complex. Now we're on the 50-yard line of that Providence Christian School.
Yeah, the football field.
The football field.
Right across from the football field.
And so our duplex is still there. We have it as rental property. We bought our home on Morton in 2007, and we remodeled it.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 blocks away from where we lived. I mean, because we didn't want to move out of the neighborhood, and then we found, a house that was for sale 2.5 blocks away, and he said, yeah, we can move into there and remodel it, and make it perfect for us, and we did.
Yeah, we looked, because my husband has a neuromuscular condition, and so going up and down stairs was just becoming too much of a risk. And so when he finished his PhD, we actually looked, for homes. And we looked out of the neighborhood, remember?
Oh, yeah. We said, let's check it out. Let's see what else is out there.
We checked a bunch of different areas, and then one morning we just looked at each other and said, we're home. This is our home. This is our neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2003, because I think our daughter was 5 or 6 at the time, 2003, 2004, Providence Christian School at that time had purchased the school from Shelton, the Shelton School. And that winter,
Yeah, the antique market.
the antique market burned down.
Burned down,
So
yeah.
then it burned down completely. I mean, there's nothing left. And so the Providence School went ahead and bought that lot. And they decided that they wanted to expand their school into a high school. They were trying to buy us out, okay? And they were also trying to buy out the senior citizens that lived on Callier from Lovers to Newmore.
Right.
They wanted those lots.
And they weren't offering market value.
No, and these are senior citizens who, when their spouses were alive, they each both worked 2 jobs to pay for that house. And now in their golden years, when they could sit back and enjoy their property and enjoy their grandkids and great-grandkids, they were offering them below market value and harassing them quite a bit. And so when we caught wind of it and we realized, no, this is not going to happen. We're not going to sell. We're not interested in doing this. And then when we found out, when we went to Callier and we met those ladies, and then everyone within that voting block, okay, these were all senior citizens. I mean, we were the youngest, we were some of the youngest
Oh, yeah.
people here.
Yeah.
And we said, this is not going to happen in our neighborhood.
And so a lot of the effort was, we talked to the neighbors, we started mobilizing, and you were walking every house and knocking on doors.
It was very much going door to door.
Yeah.
And saying, hi, I'm Mimi Perez, I'm your neighbor on Kelton Drive, do you know about this expansion that's going to happen? And if they said yes or no, we'd sit and we'd talk about it. And then a lot of them, this is the World War II generation. I mean, Mr. Northington, Leo Northington and his wife. He was battling D-Day. And he said, here I am in my neighborhood now, and I'm fighting for my house. And so, what I did a lot of is I sat down and I talked with the seniors, and I got their stories. And, being a former reporter, I'd type up their stories and then take it back to them, and then they'd sign them and send them into City Hall. And so...
Yeah, they put it in the zoning file to show that the neighbors did not want to see this drastic change happen with the expansion of a full high school on that corner in our quad.
In the end, we were successful.
Yeah, we beat the school soundly.
We beat the odds.
Yeah.
Because no one expected us to go anywhere.
Yeah, and I think the deciding factor was more than 80% of the voting area, and you look at the land area in terms of, when they send out the voting, for the zoning cases, we did color coding our little sheet. We had like, this house is green, this property's red, and here's people who hadn't voted. We were counting the votes and looking at the land area. More than 80% of the neighbors in this voting area said no.
It was so much that the city council, for this to pass city council, they would have needed a supermajority.
Yes.
And it wasn't going to happen. They didn't have the votes on city council. But our city council person at the time, Valletta Lil, voted against the expansion.
Right, and the city council kind of followed the lead, for the council member. And there's no doubt that our neighborhood at the time was the most unified it had ever been.
It had ever been.
Since we had lived there. Maybe there was other incidents before. Our quadrant, our neighborhood quadrant, because we were speaking in one voice. And it was great. I mean, it felt good to know that what we were doing was helping the neighbors and making things happen to affect positive change, or at least prevent negative change from occurring in the neighborhood. And the best part about it is we really got to know our neighbors.
Yeah, we really did.
Especially the elderly neighbors.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah.
Our daughter at the time was 5 or 6, and so she got to, so we homeschooled our daughter. So she came with me when we'd go meet the neighbors. So she got to hear all these stories from these people about what it was like for them in the 50s and 60s and growing up and working and World War II. I mean,
Yeah.
that was an education in and of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, we're very, very blessed that, we got to meet our neighbors.
Yeah.
Part of the issue we had when we were dealing with the school was our neighborhood as a whole, and what's considered Northpark, Love Field, was not unified. I mean, we had specific sides of the neighborhood going against what our desires were in our neighborhood. And so what Gus and I finally ended up deciding was we needed, for our quadrant, we were going to keep our neighbors and our neighborhood as unified as we could. And that's why we started the Lovers Lane Village Neighborhood Association. So when zoning fights came up or crime issues came up, we had our people informed of what was going on. But that didn't mean, well, the other 3 quads, you're on your own. And the Bird Streets, when they started their crime watch,
The Shannon Estates.
Yeah. They knew about us, and so they contacted us and said, hey, how did you get yours going? And so I just gave them all our files, and so I said, this is what we did, this is where we bought the signs, because in the end, we are all one neighborhood. When I describe our neighborhood to people, what I tell them is it's a tremendous amount of fun. I mean, we do have, fun people that live in our neighborhood. And what makes them, or what makes this neighborhood so special to us is that it's extremely accepting. It's extremely tolerant. Because when we moved into this neighborhood, at the time in 1995, we were a huge minority. The neighborhood at that time was more than 90% African American. But at no time did we feel, that that we weren't wanted in this neighborhood. We never felt that. For me, this rec center is it's a perfect hub to unite everybody. And because I know once, our Hispanic neighbors come here and use this rec center, that's a huge hook to get them in. And once they're in the habit of coming to the rec center, they'll start coming to the Crime Watch meetings. Because they're going to feel like a part of the neighborhood, that they have an investment. Because we also volunteer quite a bit at the Bachman Lake Library, and that is a huge Hispanic patronage. And I know when our daughter would help with story time, the parents go to that because they want to hear someone speaking English so they can learn the language. Their kids are being tutored and they're hearing the stories and they're doing the arts and crafts, but the parents are there as well, hearing English, learning the language. I don't think, with our experience at the library, I don't think it's a matter of, they want to stay off on their own. They are working really, really hard to try to acclimate, to learn English. But like everyone else, they have to work, and they work 7 days a week a lot of times. And so, but they keep coming back to the library. I think, I'd love to see the same thing happen here in our neighborhood with the rec center. Because once you get in the habit of coming, you're going to come for Crime Watch. You're going to come for other events. And when they become seniors, they're going to come for the senior lunches that are held here. It's just, I think it's the biggest difference is just, I think it's a language barrier.
Right. I think if you can get the kids to come, the parents will follow.
Yeah, the parents will follow.
I mean, I'll look at it from almost like a scientific perspective. It was still affordable back in the 90s and early 2000s in the neighborhood. you could still afford to buy a home for under $100K
Yeah.
back in those days. And so when the African American families were deciding to sell, the next group up that had some money was Hispanics. Okay, and they said, well, we can live in here. This is a great neighborhood. And again, the African American folks that lived here were very accepting. They welcomed people with open arms. Said, okay, this house is now for sale. You've moved in. Your kids are playing in the front yard. That's no problem. We love that. And so more and more Hispanics, and with more and more Hispanics come more and more Hispanics. They live together in a community, and it really grew. That's where I think where it blossomed is where you got a few people who moved in. And then they see other people like themselves and say, okay, I can move in here. But again, the African American community was very accepting. So I think there was that point where in the 90s, early 2000s, homes were very, very affordable, and Hispanics were moving in at that point to get in the neighborhood. I think there had to be some African American families. There was another. I know we saw other groups come in as well. At that time, I know people were starting to put money into the neighborhood. And you saw, I think, what was the year? I'm going to say maybe around 2000, 2004, 2005, in that range, we saw a lot of remodels go on with the dumpsters in front of the houses. So people started putting more money in, and that kind of drew in more. It's like you see houses, yards looking really nice, and things starting to really kind of change in terms of just the look and feel for the neighborhood. But it still had that quaint neighborhood feel. And so people, okay, more and more, it's one of those, you get to a tipping point, and it's like a tipping point was reached, and more and more people then find this area desirable because of the location. Back what drove us in 1995 is location. And so it just kind of snowballed from there.
What I've been asked a lot is, by like our friends that we've known since we've been living here, is, oh, well, aren't you glad about your neighborhood turning around and you're getting those the huge houses now? And my response to that's always, well, not really. I mean, we live in an 1,100 square foot house, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom.
That's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, but we love our house.
Yeah.
And so
it's comfortable.
I'll be honest, it hurts to see some of these cottages get knocked down. It really does. And I mean, maybe more so now because I know who used to live there. I sat at their kitchen table. I got to know these people. Mm-hmm. And so it's a reminder of, they're gone, and their heirs sold. And now we have this. Yeah,
the gentrification of the neighborhood.
Yeah, this monstrosity being built, end to end and side to side. And it's like.
But, the folks that we got to know, and we really got to love.
Yeah.
I miss that because a lot of them are not here anymore. Miss Lubertha Cephas, Miss Marie Long.
Yeah, that's a real bummer of a question because, my hope for our neighborhood is that it continues to be a strong, unified, vibrant part of the city of Dallas. Okay, that's what I'd really like, where, whether you're Hispanic, Caucasian, African American, LGBT, okay, doesn't matter. You can move into this neighborhood and you feel welcome. This is your neighborhood. You're happy to be here when you finally get off work. But the reality of that is that I know that when he and I retire, and we'll probably retire to wherever our daughter's living at that time because she's our one and only, is that when we sell our duplex, when we sell our current house, I know they're going to get ripped down. And so
it's going to hurt.
Because right now, when I go back to Birmingham, I can show my daughter, hey, that's the house where I grew up. See that? Those are the Andersons. We would slide down their hill. This is where the Morgatos live. When she comes back with our grandkids, she'll say, okay, you see that piece of land? That's where my house once was.
Yeah, the big house that's there now with the.
It wasn't that one.
The 3-story monstrosity that's there now. We can just point to the lot and that's it.
Yeah, that's. it's the history it's that piece of history that she won't have.
Which is why it's important to record it now.
Yeah, that, she won't, because when she was born, we still lived at the duplex. The duplex is going to be torn down. And, granted, they pay us what we want, you can do whatever you want with it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's the way it is. But, looking at it from a very personal perspective, our daughter won't have that ability to say, hey, this is where I grew up. This is where we planted this plant. This is where our metal rooster was in our yard, because it won't be here.
But you can see we're very passionate about the neighborhood. I mean, this is our house. This is our home. This is where we live. And this is our neighborhood. We love it. I mean, and we will fight to our last breath for it.
I remember when we were in that first school fight.
Yeah.
I had torn ligaments in my left ankle, and I had the dreaded boot on. And I remember it was just a couple of days before the city council vote. I remember I was walking down the street with that boot, going to the neighbors' homes who hadn't turned in their vote yet. Okay, because it's just a letter you get from the city, and it's easy to ignore. And saying, hey, have you voted? I'm a notary. I can help you vote if you need to vote, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I tell you what, I was walking around in that boot with my 6-year-old kid. and that was, but it was for our neighborhood. It was for our neighbors. I mean, it wasn't just for us. It was for all of us.